Okay, it's attorney Nate Amendola, criminal law and plain English. The question or topic of discussion for today is as follows. Can law enforcement lie to you? I don't want to upset you, but the answer is yes. Police, and there's some exceptions to this, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. But police or law enforcement can lie to you. So here's how I want you to think about this, okay? What is the role of law enforcement? And this is critical for you to understand this topic, but really a lot of these issues that we discuss on this channel. Um, Police are charged with investigating crime, okay? I mean, they do other things, of course, public safety and so on and so forth, but like their core function is to investigate crime. Society wants, this is how the laws have developed, right? Society wants the police to investigate crime and to make arrest decisions and things like that, when they feel it's appropriate, which is often. And the idea behind that is that the criminal justice system will work, right, and that they want to catch criminals, wherever you want to label them. So, in order to do that, the Supreme Court and then the Massachusetts courts has really given law enforcement, a wide latitude, right? So there's really a couple issues that I want you to think about. The first is, relative to like a consent to search or something, right? And then the second one is like a confession or statements made to police. But in either of these cases, the law allows the police to investigate crime and to do that to use sort of these like deceptive practices, right? So, for example, like the police, when they're going to deliver a warrant, at somebody's house, can knock on the door and not identify them as police, but rather like as a delivery person in an effort, I know this seems unfair, in an effort to get the person to open up the door. Also, think about this too. There are these undercover officers who investigate crime, right? They don't have to identify themselves as an undercover officer. That defeats the whole purpose. So you see this a lot in these sort of like hand-to-hand drug deals where one of the purported drug dealers, or user is, actually not somebody that's got a drug problem or a drug dealer, but is a undercover police officer. It would fly in the face of logic if prior to this transaction, the police officer was like, I'm a cop. It just doesn't work like that. So the police can use these like unfair or sort of these like deceptive tactics. Okay. What the problem, however, where things can run afoul for the Fourth Amendment, protecting you against unreasonable searches and seizures, is when that coercion or those, well, I should say these deceptive tactics and these like sort of coercive strategies and tactics become so coercive, right? That whether it's a confession, for example, or a consent to search, it's like the law wants people to give voluntary waivers, right? The law wants people to, if they're going to talk to the police, this is the whole point of Miranda, that they understand at least on a basic level the rights and then what they're waiving, right? So in law and society wants people to make those decisions with their own free will, and that they are voluntary but not involuntary, right? And so that's the thing you've got to think about when you're thinking about whether you should talk to the police. By the way, you shouldn't. Okay, there's really nothing that's going to help you by talking to the police. And I talk a lot about this. This is not an indictment of the police. Just, you know, police have a job to do, and it's to investigate crime. It's like asking a hammer not to strike a nail. It's just in its nature, right? So it is generally, and there are very few exceptions to this, inadvisable to speak to the police. Okay, but getting back to the core topic here, if what the police or law enforcement have done, all right, is so coercive, so deceptive, so unfair that the will of the defendant or whomever it is overborne by their unfair and deceptive or coercive tactics, that the consent to the search, for example, which you should never do, right? We'll talk about that. Is your consent or your admissions or your statements to the crimes, it, it, your free will was overborne by their tactics and deception, such that you're not making a voluntary waiver, or that you're not you make these statements not based on your own volition, but really because they've I suppose sort of forced you to. Okay, but those are the exceptions. There's a few more, but the general rule is police can lie to you. Police can deceive you. Police can use deceptive tactics to help them investigate crime and come to some charging decisions. So, slightly upsetting, I suppose, but you got to be really careful out there. I'm not a police, hater. I think they do great things, and there's some really great ones, some bad apples like anything else. But you got to be really careful when you're talking to the police or you're involved in an investigation. If you get a call, that the police want to come talk to you, your first call, should not be back to the police saying, "Sure, I'm happy to go talk to you." This gets people goofed up all the time. The majority of our cases involve a defendant's own statements to the police trying to clear things up and explain their side of the story. That's not the time to do that. Okay, so if you get a call from the police and they're conducting an investigation, or if you're the parent of a juvenile, this is particularly true. There is just no reason. So many of our juvenile cases involve. I get it. The parents aren't lawyers, even if they are. They walk their child into the police station. I don't understand that. I guess because I'm a criminal defense lawyer and I've been doing this for a while, but there's really just no reason to do that. Your first call should be to an attorney, letting them know about the investigation, and he or she will advise you what to do. But bottom line, can the police deceive you and lie to you? Yes. Nate Amendola, Criminal Law in Plain English. Thank you.